I hope my next guest takes what I'm about to say in the right way. But I have been very inspired by his ability to do sci-fi. In fact, I've seen far, far, very inferior sci-fi on the Sci-Fi Network. My guest is Philip Cook, and his film in the showcase is Malice 1999. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I mean that, and truthfully, I was blown away by what you were able to do to create with this world for Malice 1999. But for the audience that hasn't seen it, please give us a summary of what the film is about.
It's actually part of a web series, but this was like a little special that's not part of the main theme, or the main story arc of the web series. It was actually a piece we produced for a science fiction convention. And it was just on a lark that says, hey, could you produce this a science fiction film? It's like, oh, I don't have time to volunteer and make a science fiction film. But I thought, hey, wait a minute, maybe I can plug it into our web series in some way. So somehow I was able to wrap my head around that idea and justify it. It's basically the story, it takes the characters from the show, from the web series, but puts them in a sort of an alternative universe. So there's still Dad and his daughter, Alice,
right.
Still that same kind of relationship, that same kind of dynamic, except they're in the future, but it's like a retro future, because it's actually set in 1999, which is already past.
Right.
And it's basically father and daughter are both on space stations and spacecraft in orbit around the Earth. And this massive calamity happens on the moon, and it's sort of a 9/11 sci-fi style. And these two people end up sort of finding each other in the middle of this crisis and going off on an adventure together. So it's definitely over the top.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I was very impressed with it, and especially with films like Gravity, Interstellar that are coming out now. You know, I was just impressed with the fact that I was able to watch and just get sucked in to the world and to the universe. So to me, that tells me a couple things. One, you're no novice at this. You've been doing this for a while. And two, you actually have a real huge passion for it. So could you talk a little bit about, like, you know, how long have you been doing this? What inspired you to get into sci-fi? And
I've been making features for probably 25 plus years. But what intrigued me about this was, you know, you only have 7 minutes to introduce people to a world, get them to care about the characters, throw them into jeopardy, and all of a sudden, you know, on the fly, you understand who they are, what their motivations are, and what the stakes are. And to try to tell that story and sort of have it be satisfying and pull that off, which normally would be at least 45 minutes or an hour, hour and a half movie, but to try to accomplish that in 7 minutes was, to me, a story challenge and something that was kind of fun. I mean, again, getting back to this web series idea or even short form stories, I like to think of them as like the American short story. You know, how do you convey all this depth and texture, but everything, every scene, every moment, every line of dialogue contributes and adds and develops and builds, you know, takes the audience where you need them to go.
right.
So they're never going, who's this guy? What's going on? I don't understand, you know?
Right.
And you may not know that in the first 30 seconds, but you will know it in 2 minutes. And in 7 minutes, you're going to have an epic. So.
Right. Man, so I want to get into the actual web series itself, Malice, but just in terms of the CG and special effects, you know, how long did it take for Malice 1999? How long did it take to make that?
It's interesting. It was almost a zero budget. We shot it in a day. It was basically shot on a blue screen. Everything in it is virtual with the exception of a couple of little props and things. So you know, it probably took a day to edit, but it probably was, I'm going to say 10 days of visual effects work to composite it and put it together. And then the audio, you know, that's probably a day or two to get that right as well. So I would say there's at least a good full 2 weeks of production time in it.
Was it a challenge for you as a director and a challenge for your actors to act against nothing?
You know, they have been working with me for so long. They get the world of Phil, which means, and they have great imaginations. I mean, Brittany, you know, if I tell her there's a monster in the corner, she'll be absolutely terrified and act like there's a monster in the corner.
Right.
So the only really tricky part, because they're always in limbo, and it's always one blue screen, right? And there's only one.
Right.
So you're constantly just kind of shifting people around when they're talking to each other and doing reverses. So the trick is to try to keep straight, where are they, and you know what the screen direction is, and then that world will get dropped in behind them in post. So that was probably the only really tricky part, but No, both of them were, they saw it in their imaginations, man. I didn't have to tell them what was going on. They got it. I just said, look, there's a big explosion over there. Trust me, it's going to scare the crap out of you.
Right.
And then they would act accordingly. So.
All right, so one of the things, once we get through this weekend and my life gets a little more normalcy, not being the director of the Rosebud Film Fest, I'm definitely going to check out Malice the web series. I started watching, I think I got through episode 3. And I think I also watched one of your behind the scenes things, and you talked about how telling a quick story, as you just did, in a short amount of time. And I think that's one of the things I love about it is it's like 5 minutes, and I feel like I've learned about her family, like everything that's going on. It's an interesting web series that I definitely want to dive into. Let's talk a little bit about that series and how you came up with it.
Well, the series was sort of the film business has always been about technology and changing marketplaces. And over the years, I did make independent feature films, and the first one, you know, we thought we could get films in movie theaters, and you could have gotten films in movie theaters back in the 80s. And then I did another sci-fi film in the 90s, and that was on HBO, Showtime, and Cinemax. And you could have done it with no stars. Right. You could have, that was possible to do that. Well, you can't get a movie in a movie theater anymore. It's without, you know, a massive amount of money. You can't get a film on Showtime, HBO, and Cinemax unless there's some sort of name in there. And then I did a direct-to-video film because there were 60,000 brick-and-mortar video stores in America. And so forget the TV and the movies. 60,000 video stores is 60,000 opportunities to sell somebody a DVD. So I made this film, and we did. You know, we did, and we were successful in the direct-to-home video market. Well, all those stores are gone. So you can't get one in the theater. You can't get it on TV. You can't get it on cable. You know, and one of my films was on the Sci-Fi Channel. I couldn't do that anymore, and the video stores were all gone. Now what? And so at that time, YouTube was just starting to come on the scene. And I started doing some research, and I couldn't find any narrative-driven content on YouTube, because that was when YouTube was known as the cat channel, right? The cat videos, and, you know, anecdotal stuff. But there was never any narrative, you know, with a continuing set of stories. And I'm going, is it because it's too hard, or is there a reason people aren't doing this? So I jumped into that, and I was trying to come up with a story that I thought would have as much appeal. And you know, I have 2 young girls, and they spent a lot, at the time, they were spending a lot of time on YouTube, and I thought, that's my audience, young girls. Young girls drive the marketplace in so many ways. I mean, women drive television, you know, and these are people who share, they're interactive, they communicate. So I thought, okay, let's come up with a compelling story that anybody could watch, but it's designed specifically for, you know, 15, 16, 17, 20-year-old women. But she's tough, and she's badass, and she's got a gun. So the teenage boys and the gamers will like her too. So she's vulnerable, but she also kicks butt. So I thought, okay. And then, but we weren't tying off of a franchise, because some people make web shows and they're sort of Harry Potter things or Star Trek things. It's like, well, look, you know, you're going to put all that effort into it. You want to own the material. You know, you can't own if you do a Star Trek knockoff or a Harry Potter knockoff. So I created an original thing, and the only universal idea I had was Alice in Wonderland, which is in the public domain. So we sort of had this loose tie-in. This is sort of a contemporary take on this sort of Alice in Wonderland story. And then I thought, well, it's got to be, you know, on a computer. It's not like television where it's passive. When you're watching video on the computer, you're one mouse click away from a distraction. You know, your Facebook is clicking at you, people are texting you. It's like, so this has to be really compelling. If anybody's going to take 6 minutes out of their lives, I got to give them no reason whatsoever to check the email or click off the button. And I think you've discovered that when you watch them. It's like, because whenever anybody sends me a video, the first thing I do is see how long it is. How much time am I committing to this thing? The second thing is, and I'll start watching it. And after about 30 seconds, if you get a sense of the rhythm, you can start skipping. You know, you can skip to the next minute, because the next minute is kind of like the first one. You can kind of skip your way until you get to the end, to the punchline. Can't do that with this show. You skip 30 seconds ahead, you just missed something. You skip 30, so you got to watch it, and you want to watch it. So, and it was designed like, don't give them a reason to click off. Don't give them a reason to fast forward. And they sit there, and next thing they know, boom, 7 minutes is gone. It's like, wow, I'm going to click the next one. So, you know, I tried to design it like crack click. So you had to get the next hit.
I got you. Well, Phil, listen, maybe we can have you and the cast of Malice come on, do a Malice special or something like that. That would be fun. I hate to bring it to an end, but we have to. But where can people find you?
Well, me
and the show.
The show, the easiest place to find the show is on YouTube, Malice Down Under. So you just go to YouTube and type in Malice Down Under, or you just type in Malice a series, you'll go straight to YouTube. You can learn about us on eaglefilms.com. And from any of those places, you can find our Facebook and our Twitter and all the yappity yaps that we do. So.
Okay, Phil, like I said, I'm inspired as a filmmaker because it's like, wow, like you said, off a zero budget, look at what you can do. Thanks so much for coming on the show. We got to have you come on more.
So much fun.
All right, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.